morning, everybody. Welcome to TLD Cast. It's Thursday today. That means you made it over Hump Day, and we are that much closer to the weekend, and we are super excited to be here today. We are going to talk about a lot of virtual instruction, virtual instructor-led stuff today. We've got a packed conversation for you all today, so do not go anywhere. What you should do, though, instead of thinking about going somewhere, is clicking that share button up there and telling all of your friends that we are going to be talking about some great things connected to being a virtual instructor, a virtual trainer, utilizing the tools and being successful at doing that, because that's why we're here. TLDC is here to help everybody get better at the work that they do in training, learning, and development every single day, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. UK time. And today we're talking with the wonderful folks of the Virtual Learning Collaborative. Sonia is here with us. Sonia, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How's everybody doing? I'm going to say hi in the chat. Hey!
That's everybody. And of course, the lovely Cassie Labori is here with us today.
Howdy.
Good morning to both of you. We haven't had two people on at the same time in a while, so I have to get used to like going around the horn here with the 4 video screens. But this is great. So why don't we start with you, Sonia, and have you introduce yourself and just tell everybody a little bit about who you are, and then we'll jump up to Cassie, and then we'll get into the show.
Sure. So I'm Sonia Farini. I am the owner and virtual and e-learning services director. So over here at VLC. So just happy to be here and share some of my producer knowledge, previous producer, facilitator, and now the owner of this great company. So, hey, Cassie, how about you?
Oh, hi, everybody. And no worries on misspelling my name, actually, Gail, if I'm saying your name correctly. It's my life. It's like part of my identity. It's Cassie, not Cassandra. It's not Kathy, but it's spelled with a K and a Y, not an IE and not a C. So it's got a long story and a long history behind it. So you're just right in line. So awesome. So guys, I've been in here before, and it's so exciting to be back with the TLDC community. I got to see some of you in person recently in Phoenix. It was awesome. And I work for Cassie Labori Consulting. I teach people each day how to be effective virtual facilitators and also producers and virtual instructional designers as well. So I am very often found at Starbucks talking about virtual training, or anywhere. So anytime you want to talk about it, that's what I'm talking about. That and probably vintage Barbies as well. But that's a whole nother webinar. So
that one actually sounds kind of interesting, kind of along the lines of baseball analytics.
That's right. That's another topic that floats around my house because my husband loves baseball. And he's going to a conference this weekend in Phoenix where they're going to talk all day long and all evening and the next day and the next day about statistics in baseball. There's more than one presenter on that, if you can even believe that. But my husband wrote a book on that, and so he's really excited about this conference. So it's super cute.
It's awesome. I love it when people go to other conferences, folks that are in our industry, and they go check out other events and how those are done and the types of people that are up speaking and what kind of gets them excited and whatnot. It's always tons of fun. And I'm sure there's virtual events around the same topic as well, is what we need to talk about, because we'll get better at doing those virtual types of events and anything online that they can do. So we've got some questions queued up. So those of you that are in the chat that maybe have forgotten, we have an ask a question section. You can vote up or down those questions. Well, not down, I think. Just you can vote up which ones you want to have us ask, and or you can even enter your own. So that would be a fun thing to do. But let's just start with some of the basics. I'll let you take it from here. I can't remember which one of you was going to kick this off, but you guys.
Where's my click? Okay. Where's my click to raise hand? My real hand.
All you have to do is just yell at me and tell me, go away.
What do I do with this thing? How do I do this? This is weird.
All right.
Okay. So Sonia and I are going to be doing a virtual facilitator intensive. We're doing a training with some people who work with her and some other clients as well. And we were talking about, why are we doing this? You run the producer company. And so we wanted to get together and really talk about why producers and production tasks help the engagement of any virtual classroom program. And I have examples for you today. And if you're game, I've got some activities that we're going to try to do together. And we might ask you to come on webcam later to prove it. So just if that's you, dig deep and decide if you're the one who's going to volunteer to come on that webcam later. But today we'd love to talk about production, producers, what that role is, how it helps to engage and why, and then answer your questions maybe that you have around that. How do you go about finding producers? How do you figure out whether you need one or not, all that business. And so, like I said, anything virtual classroom, we want to talk about it. But we're angling it towards producers today. But Sonia, what would you add?
So I think can you hear me? Oh, good. I think the role between the facilitator and the producer, and sometimes, you may have a producer that maybe can't be as successful as they would like to be in the environment because sometimes the facilitator isn't as skilled in the environment as, and sometimes that lack of skill actually causes some deterrent to the session running super smoothly.
Yeah, it's like, so just last week I was in Orlando and I did this topic, do I really need a virtual classroom producer was a new talk for me. And also in the works, I'm writing a book around it as well. But another thing to think about here is, think about the last time you guys went to a webinar or a live online training, and just head to the chat for this. What are some of the problems that happened? And maybe you got lucky and you had no problems, but what are just some of the things that happened to you or you've seen happen in the past? And yeah, I'm talking about all problems, not just technical ones, but any problem that might have happened.
Yeah. I'm curious to see this too. I've got a couple of examples I can share with you, but I want to see what everybody else has to say first.
Yeah, I know. One of the things I did when I opened up the session last week in person is I had Topher Olson. I think you guys have maybe met him before. He's local in Phoenix too, but I think he's been a guest on TLDC, I think. But Topher works for Alliance Residential, and he's also in his sort of side job, he does musical theater. And he has all these wonderful videos that he's done for his company that sort of help with the training and the culture and the environment and all that. It's amazing. But anyway, I had him as my unpaid voluntold actor in my session. And what he did, I had this poor woman, her name was Cassandra, actually. She came up, I asked her to just introduce herself and talk about why she was at conference, who she works for, all that. And as soon as she started doing that, I had Topher come from the back of the room and say, "Hi, it's Topher, I'm here now." And then he sat down and she was like, "Okay." And then she started to say like 2 more sentences and he goes, "Oh, wait a second. How do I use this chair? Should I like pull it forward or push it back? Or what do I do with this chair exactly?" And she was like, "What?" And so then, of course, I stopped him and we all had a little bit of a laugh over it. She won a zombie, of course. But, why did I do that? And what we're trying to demonstrate is probably what you guys have seen over and over again. People come into webinars late and then they come in and they're like, "Hi, I'm here. It's me." And they announce that over the phone, and I'm like, wait, would you do that in person? I had to unpay Topher as an actor to do that. And all of you thought it was awkward. And so why is that an okay thing to do in the webinar? So what's happening in the chat, Sonia, that I'm see coming through?
So Gael has a great question there, not knowing how to respond. So when you get that, "Oh, does anybody have any questions?" Comment. So what would you say maybe in a different way versus, "Oh, do you have any questions?" Like at the end of a session, you get those kind of many facilitators do it. I've done it myself.
Well, it's like trying to be a virtual facilitator is confusing in the beginning because you don't know how to be in the environment. And so, it'd be like if you look at it in person like this, like, throw it way back when we were all first training in person, it would be not only that you're learning how to present, but that you don't even know how to physically be in the space. And so the virtual facilitator might be asking for questions, but they don't really know how people are supposed to ask them. They don't know about what are they muting, are they unmuting, are they using chat, what are they doing? They don't know how to do it. And if you put that into like what it might be like in person, it would be like, I don't really know what this chair is for. So why are people in those things with 4 legs? And so what ends up happening is because people don't know how to be in the virtual environment, they become very focused on the technology and the virtual environment tools itself. And then that leads to them not really teaching or not focusing on content or connection with participants, right? So enter producer, enter the concept and idea of producer.
Yeah. The other thing I would add there is instead of saying maybe, what questions do you have? Maybe flopping it around and saying, what surprised you about this content? Tell me in the chat, or tell me on the phone, or, hey, communicate with me however we can here. But flop the question around instead of making it like come up with your own question. It's like, what did you find surprising? What did you, that sort of thing. So that's kind of a facilitation.
Yeah, and you're getting into the nuance of being a facilitator, which people can't usually get to because they're just not really sure how to move the slides.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you have somebody focusing on how to move slides, reminding them when they ask a question like you just demonstrated, let's go to the chat. Or click that raise hand button at the top of your screen. Producer jumping in to remind the facilitator in the beginning, especially to say those things. Producer worrying about movement and logistics within the environment. You can get back to the facilitator doing what you just said, Sonia, and focusing on creative ways to learn, thoughtful ways to learn, ultimately effective ways for people to learn and respond.
Yes. So Carrie says, possibly being unsure how to operate and interact in the virtual space. So this kind of gets to our point here of facilitator actually knowing what are the tools that I have here that I can use, right? And producer in being able to instruct use on those tools.
It's interesting. Is it Gael? Is that how you say it, or is it Gail? You got to tell me the phonetic in the chat there, please. But that's interesting. Gail, okay. It's interesting that somebody complained about being told what to do, and I would really love to have heard how that person was telling them what to do. In the 20 plus years that I've been training online, that's literally never happened to me. But then again, my tone is going to be like, very inclusive from the beginning and more about options for you to contribute rather than I'm telling you what to do right now or else, And so I wonder how it was delivered and not to blame the facilitator there, but I'd love to hear more first, just to see what was happening there, because my experience is like the exact opposite of that. Like if I don't tell you what to do, you do nothing. So it's so funny. Yeah, shot caller. It's good. Anyway,
so the other thing is too, really instructing only on the tools that you're going to be using. If I'm not going to be using text on the screen or annotating, don't teach me how to do it. So you're taking me through all this skill that I don't need in this session. I may need it in another session, but for this one, just, make the best use of my time, facilitator time, producer time, and only talk about the tools that you're going to be using in that time.
That's a great point. And for me too, I don't even usually end up quote unquote talking about the tools as much as we just use them. And so a sort of classic example of an icebreaker for me, like I always do icebreakers in the beginning. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Me, won't it? Here it is. I always do icebreakers, and some of you might have seen this before, but like check this out. So here's me in the very beginning of a program. And what I'm going to do is teach people how to use the tools. So type your name on the picture that best describes you today. Or if I have a lot of people, I'll go to the chat, type the number in the chat of the picture that best describes you today in your role, and then I'll call on people to talk. And so what they're doing is they're practicing chat, practicing annotation tools only if I'm going to be using them in the program though. And then I'll call on people to come on webcam if we're going to be using those, and to tell us, or to only type in chat. And so this particular activity could be used in so many ways to teach the tools that we intend to use the rest of the way. And, having the producer there, making sure that everything is enabled, and that when people can't figure out how to come on webcam or where to find chat, they take over directing that, so I can keep focusing on why I've asked you to describe yourself, and then be able to relate that back to the learning for that day and the intention that we need to keep, moving forward.
That's a great one.
Did that show okay? Yeah, cool. It came on the screen okay, didn't it? Okay, good.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
So
that's such a, Jane, cool. It's such a cool activity. You just get different pictures there and then ask people and relate it to the content. It's like for me, when I'm using that activity, it's about getting to know people. And so if it's in a work setting, like I just recently did it, I work with the Hilton University worldwide, and I teach their people on a regular basis how to deliver webinars and training. And I'm working with people who work in the production role too. And I always do that no matter what location. And recently I had an APAC group. And so I'm wondering, how's it going to go? Are they going to be okay with this? And they totally were. And what I did is said, okay, which of these images best describes you in your role at Hilton today? And so then it became a business discussion, and it's not all fun. And then at the same time, using the tools, getting comfortable with knowing one another so that they're more comfortable then to talk, ask questions, get things wrong, all those types of things. Super simple, really fun. The only danger is it can take a long time if you keep going with it. Yeah.
I want to scroll back up here. Mark had a great one. He said, it's useful when you have a tool in Connect, like the POA or the presenter only area, so you can chat and address some issues. So I will tell you, I've had a facilitator who hates the POA, absolutely despises it. She does not want to use it. So the only way that we have to communicate with her in a session versus coming over on audio, and nobody likes that, right? In the middle of training, is to send her a private chat. Well, guess what? She doesn't pay attention to the chat when she's facilitating. So this is another one of those tips and tools that, you want to, if you've got something coming up, or, hey, Mike dropped off, so he's not in that breakout anymore, so we're lopsided now. Do you want me to rearrange it or just keep it like it is? That's another one of those tools that, where you're upskilling, I don't want to say upskilling because, it's, or training them better in, how to operate in an environment like Connect. I love Connect for that reason, that you've got so much flexibility there in how you communicate, but not all facilitators want to do it or know how.
That's so interesting. My husband recently was on television talking about all those baseball things, and he came back from that gig going, oh my gosh, I have this whole new understanding of production. Because, production stuff does come from TV and radio, really, right? And that's where you really see it. And people accept that that's a normal part of how things work in that world. Where in the virtual learning world, companies are still sort of like, what? I need a producer? Why? And so we're still working on helping people understand that. But what he said, they had, when he was on TV, you guys, first off, there's people all around the studio, and they're all telling him things to do as he's on the TV. So there's that. People all around you telling you what to do. So as you were talking about the facilitator who didn't want to listen, just imagine them on TV. He had something in his ear, a little thing in his ear, and they were telling him, hey, sit up straight, make sure you smile. Oh, and then they're getting stats for him too. They had, when certain players were mentioned, they had a guy for that. They had a guy go, oh, Trout's doing this or whatever. I'm no baseball person, so I can't fake this. But they were like getting information and statistics about specific players that were being mentioned, or feeding that into his ear so he could talk about it right there in the moment. And to top it off, as if that wasn't enough, he had a clear table. On the table on this TV show, it was clear, and underneath that's a screen with notes coming at him. So it was coming at him in all ways, ears, eyes, and in the physical. And then on the break, they had people running up and like fixing his chair. And so we talk about like a facilitator who can't look at a Skype chat, or who can't look in the POA for 30 seconds. And reality is, this is what makes you better. And these are all the things that are helping you to be more connected. And it's like if you look at it more like I'm thankful that I have people helping me, then you can just be more effective at this. And so a lot of times I'm working with facilitators to help them be more open to that, because I've had it too. Sonia, in the very beginning of my career at Dale Carnegie, I had a Dale Carnegie trainer report me to the uppers because I chatted her while she was teaching. And I was chatting her to like you're muted, okay? We can't hear you. Things like that.
Right. Yeah. It's so important that you get that feedback. So when you have that facilitator who is willing to use the tools to make the session more engaging for everyone, that's awesome. I've got facilitators who they never look at the chat, even if we're just like maybe in WebEx. So that's a good example. You don't have the benefit of having a POA in WebEx, and the chats all come in the same place. So it's sometimes hard to identify those, but facilitators not paying attention to that, or they're not seeing it, they're skipping over it. So when you have that, it's to me, it's just so important that they're engaged there as well. So it's not just to deliver content and to be the expert on the content, right, or to the expert on delivery of the content. It's that also making this the best experience. And really, that's what the role of the producer and the facilitator is to jointly make it the best experience, engaging and interactive as possible for participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is why, Sonia, you and I are going to do this training for your producers, because helping the producers understand exactly what facilitators are trying to do will help them better communicate how they can work together as partners.
Yes.
Yeah. And so as much as we talk about facilitators learning certain things about production and letting go of those worries and fears, it's also of value for people who primarily work as producers to understand what facilitators are trying to do and to be able to speak that language a little bit more and have even a greater understanding, so they can get in there and say, hey, listen, let me do that part. Because we facilitators, we're pretty controlling. Right? You guys, come on, raise your hand if you're controlling. I am. Survey is going to be about me. So, you know what I mean? Right?
I said today, I'm not a control freak. I'm a control enthusiast.
That's right. A control artist.
I'm a control artist and enthusiast, right? Yeah. Hey, Gail. Gail's with us on that. Yeah, absolutely. And we wanted to, go ahead, Cassie. No, you go ahead.
No, because mine's going to launch into activities. So if you have another point to make, I'm going to, speaking of controlling, I'm going to take over.
Well, this is part of it. So yes, we wanted some of our producers to be a little bit more adept in the environment, see it from the facilitator perspective, and to also gain them some additional skills. But we wanted to offer it to the general public as well, and And to really fill the class with people who are interested in doing facilitation and doing it the right way, right?
Right. Yeah. And thank you. You know what? Thank you too for the question. What's the difference between facilitator and producer? And at the very basic level, it turns into responsibilities and who leads. So think about the word like who should lead at each moment. And if you say that the producer is going to lead on anything technical and the facilitator is going to lead on anything content, I think that's the most simple way to break it down. Now you can imagine though, come on, as soon as we launch into a breakout activity, there's an intersection there where it's like, it's just as much technical as it is content, right? But in reality, you want the producers to be focused on, so for example, if it is breakout, when I'm going to run it and to really differentiate the rules, I will have the facilitator explain what we're doing. What's the purpose of this small group activity as it pertains to what we are learning? Boom, stop. Producer, how will we get into that small group? Producer takes over explaining, click, 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 go, 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 I'll help. And they get them in. Yeah. And then facilitator can go visit each one, help with content, bring them back, which producer will bring them back. Trainer then says, great, they're all back. What did you learn? What happened? Let's relate that to what you learned. And so that's a really solid, I think, and very sort of simplistic way to differentiate. It does get slightly complicated from there, but that's where I go. I don't know, what would you guys add? I know we got a lot of people here who do virtual training, and so I'm curious, what would you add that differentiates producer and trainer? Like, I know Cindy, you're here with us. Awesome. And Sonia, what would you add?
I've got just a couple of examples of how it can go wrong or what goes wrong. So I mean, if you think about let's talk about specific platforms. So in WebEx, facilitator sharing full screen. They go into the session and they want to see it better, so they put it in full screen. What they may not understand is, why can't she see the chat? She can't see the chat anymore. She doesn't understand, she's waiting for people to respond. And then she's like, well, how do I get out of here? How do I get out of full screen? So also knowing, how to do that kind of stuff is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good, like specific examples. Like, here's another one. Thanks, Cindy, what you said. Here's another one. So facilitator wants to survey the audience to maybe get a baseline on experience level. And so what I want to be able to do is say, hey, who's here and what's your experience? I've got a question for you. And then producer takes over, launches poll, makes sure it's running, shares results, and then I see right in front of me who's here and what their experience is, and then I speak to that, and then I move forward, able to present, train, whatever it may be from that. What will typically happen when you don't have a producer online in that example is, hi, I'm wondering what everyone's experience is here, and I'm going to run a poll, and I'm going to click on that poll, and I think you should all see that poll now. So if you could, and then I'm disengaged, I'm out. Let me have a copy of the slides.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I'm looking at the chat. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cindy going into okay, next level, 2 facilitators and a producer. Yeah. Facilitator fights. Right.
And that's part of why that pre-session time is so important, right? You get that pre-session time so you can identify roles and responsibilities. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And if you don't set that stage ahead of time, then you've got people walking all over each other.
Right. It's totally true. And you need a plan of who's, like, I always plan entrance and exit, and then you also have timing planned as well. And so when there's 2 facilitators, the plan is extraordinarily important. And I think you're right. Some of the confusion related to meeting facilitators, you're right. The word facilitator as it pertains to meetings is pretty different than what we're talking about facilitation in learning. I know. You're acting like the producer. You are. You're not the lead on the content per se. And maybe the better word would be moderator or host. But we do, it's sort of classic in virtual training to not really have our terms right. I mean, if we were just to right now put in the chat, what do you call this? How many different words do we use? I know, Cindy, you run this poll a lot. I do as well. If we could just have the same words for things, it might help with getting clear on what we all mean. But right now we really don't. Hey, Brett.
I'm just going to jump back in because that was my point in there. And so I just thought I'd add it verbally instead of typing so much. My fingers are getting tired, but yeah. And it is like semantics is a really big deal in our industry, and we don't get a lot of the terms right at times. And, and just, there is a mix of all these words. And I do think this is where a lot of this confusion comes from when people say, oh, you're a facilitator. Oh, great. You facilitate meetings all the time. You should just be able to facilitate that meeting online too, because you're a great facilitator. And it's like, when you're online, no, not necessarily. You facilitate the content, not the action. When you're in a room facilitating, you're managing the logistics. You're almost like the tech person in the room. Except you're not managing tech. You're mostly managing time. You're managing interactions. You're managing process. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And instead of the tech, and it's so, maybe we should call it a meeting producer, right? Or and then as opposed to a meeting facilitator. And virtually you need 2 people, but in a meeting you don't. I don't know. I mean, there's a
I'm
lot
so
of
confused.
I'm confused
Oh
too,
no.
What about meeting lead? You know, I mean, you've heard that one too. You know, oh, we have the meeting lead here. Or you're the leader of the meeting. It's still, there's so many terms. And I love what you said, Cassie, about how, you know, people, we are really good at not identifying the, you know, the terms or identifying several terms for one role. You know, when you think about even, you know, the facilitator's got leader, meeting host, moderator, you know, facilitator, trainer, and then producer has, you know, virtual classroom producer, moderator, event coordinator, event manager, you know, and it's just, yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, you guys, I've got a really fun icebreaker that I love to run, and I thought, why don't we run it together, and then maybe we can get a couple people to come on webcam and share what they did with it. And then after we do the icebreaker, maybe we could talk about where a producer would help me running it virtually, like where you think I might need help with it, just to have you consider it. But if you're game, are you game? A bunch of little, like, how about some emojis in the chat? You game? Who's game for an icebreaker? Can you tell that I got a degree in persuasive speaking? Yeah. Okay. I'm sort of okay with it. Yeah, you're game, right? Okay, so think about if you'd be willing to share. So here's how this runs. And I'm happy to show you the slides if you want to see the slides that I normally would use. Because I could just technically do this without slides, but I think it's kind of cool for you to see what it might look like virtually if you're good. Yeah. All right. Okay, here we go. Here we go. And tell me, is my pretty pictures coming in again? Okay, Sonia?
Yes, I see it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, that was the old one. So let's do a new one. Who's ready for an icebreaker? And this particular icebreaker, this particular icebreaker is specifically for people who teach people things. So I did this in a Train the Trainer program that I did many years ago, and I loved it in person so much that I immediately stole it, and as all good trainers do, and I do it online all the time, and it works just as well online as it does in person. So here's how it works. Remember, this is an icebreaker for people who are facilitators, trainers, presenters who have to teach people things. So look around your office, look around your room, and select an object. Any old object, don't overthink it. Got it? Got it? If we were online, I'd be like, green check when you've got it. All right. Briefly jot down 5 characteristics that describe that object. And when you're done, just say in the chat, I'm done, I got it. Again, don't overthink it. Just jot down 5. And Sonia, if you could see the chat, could you tell me when most people are ready?
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I can. I was looking at the chat.
I know you're done. That's okay. We got
Brent is done.
Pretty much got them. No need to overthink this or worry about it. Just 5 things that describe your object. Boom, ready? Okay, this is where it gets crazy. You ready, guys? Highlight 2 that also describe you and be prepared to share why. Okay? I know. Okay, so before I show you what I do online, let's do this. This would be a really fun time, Brent, if we could have a couple people volunteer to just come on webcam and say, this is what I chose and this is why these 2 are me.
That's a great activity. I love it.
And it should be awkward. I will warn you. So
and
I could
we gave everybody at least 30 minutes to prep their camera and to get ready to come online. So some of you people in the chat, you got to be ready to come on and hang out with us. Oh, Cindy's ready to do it. Awesome.
Yay. I can't wait to hear Sonia's round, black, white, soft, and rock. What is it going to be, Sonia? All right.
I'll do mine next.
Okay. All right. Do I need to do anything, Brent? Like go off the camera so Cindy can come on or anything?
No,
okay.
We've got one video spot open. She's connecting right now. So
if you need to drop me on it, you can, and then just bring me back. I'm fine with that.
No, we're good.
Okay. We got Gail too. That's awesome. When I did this, you guys, I chose a pink folder and it was pink and shiny. So I was like, I'm pink and shiny. My cheeks get pink and I have a shiny personality. It was super embarrassing. Hey, Cindy.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Cindy. Great to see you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Should I show you the object first or just tell you what the adjectives were?
You can show us if you have it.
Yeah, I
If you
better
have
show
it'd
it
be
to
so
you.
cool.
Hold on, it's right over here. So I have been playing around with this really fun Oculus Go headset. So I described it as gray and plastic and bulky is how I described it. And that's one of the ones that I picked for me. Bulky, because I'm wearing my bulky sweatshirt today. I'm in my comfy clothes, not having to go out for any appointments. And we're still after the holidays, and so I'm feeling a little bulky, and so I'll go with that. The other one that I used is a little futuristic because I was watching my husband use it today, and we were taking a look at a couple things on it, and I thought, that looks just like in Tomorrowland in Disney World. For those of you who are familiar with it, the Carousel of Progress, the kid who's wearing this, they're trying to project into the future, and that describes me because I love thinking about what's coming around the road in the future.
Ah, Cindy, thank you for sharing with us that how you are bulky and futuristic at the same time today.
Yeah, today.
Really, really very creative, and you're having to stretch it, connecting yourself to an object, and of course that's by design. And you bravely went first and bravely shared. I felt really awkward when I had to share pink for some reason. I was just like, when I did that, I don't know. I got real weird, and I actually clammed up when I had to say it. Did you feel that way a little bit when you're talking about bulky?
Yeah, I'm telling the world I'm feeling bulky today.
I know.
Keeping it real.
This is why we love you. How vulnerable you allow yourself to be. And why you're great at facilitating and helping us to connect. Oh, Cindy, thank you so much. Yay!
Yeah, thank you. Who else wants to jump
Hearts.
in?
We need hearts. A bunch of hearts in the chat, please. All right. Let's get Gail connected too. And there's no comparison, by the way, Gail. And yeah, while she's getting connected, do we want?
I'll do
let's
mine.
let her get connected. Yeah. Okay.
So mine is it's a piece of obsidian, and it's called Snowflake Obsidian, and it's a rock, and it's actually formed through lava. Right, it's actually part of lava, I think. Anyway, so I put black, white, round, and soft, and a rock. And so I'm going to say I'm soft because, I have a couple of extra pounds that winter. We're back in the winter hibernation thing. We're still in it here in Minnesota. But the other thing I would say is that I'm a rock. I'm a rock to my team. I'm there for them. I feel like I support them in every way possible, and that they know they've got a place to come to. So I'm kind of that solid rock that they can come and, they know they can get some answers or at least some direction from me and support.
Oh, that's awesome. So you can imagine, guys, if we were in the room, all together, and we're teaching people who are facilitators, prepping them to be facilitators, look what we are learning about the people we have chosen. We have people who are futuristic and brave and vulnerable, people who are going to be our rock, and again, vulnerable and brave too. So Sonia, thank you so much for sharing yours. And there was a level of bravery coming from you as well there, which this activity requires. So thank you so much. Look at this lovely person smiling at us. Hi, Gail.
Hi, everyone.
It's so wonderful
Can
to
you
see
hear
you.
me?
We can, and it
Brilliant.
looks great too.
Well, thank you. I just enjoy the interface. It's really cool. I've never been on that one, so I had to come and try it. I normally done Adobe, WebEx, Zoom, and GoTo, and so it's really cool to try a new technology today.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Lucky us too.
What was your object?
Right. Well, it's with that. So it's not very original. I'm not sure you can see it. Okay, it's pink. So I had a moment when you mentioned the pink, Casey, where I was like, oh wow. I
know pink is awkward for some reason, right? For us, like,
it is.
It's one thing to be wearing pink, but to say you're pink feels weird.
Yes, that's why I was thinking, well, I would use colorful rather than pink.
I know. Yeah.
But yes, I've chosen colorful and with variable level. At the moment, sadly, it's empty at the end of the day, because I think that's defined me. I've I'm French, so people find it very colorful when I express myself, although we don't do PC in France. I'm pretty blunt, apparently, because I know how to say no very directly. No means no, and I use it profitably in my life. I know it's not just done, but sometimes it helps people. And variable level, because yes, I need to be refilled with various things, like joining sessions like today to replenish my energy level, my inspiration. So yes, loving it. Great icebreaker, Casey.
It's wonderful. You guys steal away, please. It is such a wonderful activity, and it's so great to do it online and in person. Because like what I found interesting, each of you sharing your two of the three people who shared today, one was very like object with color, bulky, was it soft? I think, Sonia. And then the other one that you guys chose was more about who you are, like as a person, like futuristic in the way that you're seeing things, rock in supporting people, and Gail, what you've just given us too, and being creative, and it's and needing to be filled. It's so interesting how people think, and sometimes people are a little bit resistant at first, and then they really open up. Most of the time, there's a lot of laughter, and and there's bonding that occurs with this particular icebreaker, both online and in person. So I thank you all for volunteering to share.
Thanks,
I know.
Gail.
Do we all want to put Brent on the spot? Yeah, can you do yours, Brent?
Oh,
if you did.
What's funny is that when she lifted up her coffee mug, I was like, dang it, I did my coffee mug, but mine's blue. So, and I don't feel blue. So I'm like, I can't say that I feel blue or that I'm blue, but shiny works, because I'm feeling awfully overlit today.
Too much coffee?
Yeah. The container part of it, right, was, you're kind of, always being that holder of information, knowledge, trying to share it with others. Yeah. Coffee seems to be that thing that people gather around. And so that always kind of feels like something I can relate to a little bit.
It's so interesting you say all that, because Brent, that is what you do for all of us all the time, every day with this community. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
It's just the truth. You guys, that icebreaker is so cool. Let me show you. So while I'm showing you this, the couple little things that wrap it up here. In the chat, how is producer helping me? So online, what we did here today is we used webcam and audio, and I do that a lot. But there's not always time, because you can see even that took us about 15 minutes, right? And so if you've got a whole class you have to run, here's what I do. I have a slide like this. Everybody picks a spot. They type their name, the object that they chose, and they type the two characteristics. We all read them while they're typing them. And then I call in a few people to share, right? And if I have to have every single person share, then I've got to have a smaller group and I have to have time. But generally speaking, I'm running classes with about 16 people. And I generally have like, maybe about half those people go, and I find other ways for people to share, and not everybody always wants to. And I think that it's not even necessary that everybody always does, but that's just so you can see there's different ways to run it. And then this is something that you should just know to end it. People will not select an object that they don't know. So people observe what we know. And it's important as facilitators, learning practitioners, to remember that people learn things differently, and they may not be seeing something because they don't even really know what it is to begin with. And that could be why it's hard for them to learn it. And I love that reminder for myself. This activity also gets us into send and receive mode, and to be able to reflect, as our 4 people who volunteered to share today very much showed us, and all the rest of you listening in. There was an element of awkwardness for you to have to hear it a little bit, right? And so you're getting in that mode of having to learn something. But cool. So where does a producer help me with all of that? Because certainly there's a lot of responsibility for me to be listening and to making connections and commenting thoughtfully and appropriately for the learning. But there's a lot of tech that was happening there too. And so has anything come through in the chat, Sonia, about where producers might help me?
Yes. Actually, Gail mentioned, she said there was definitely somebody behind the scenes bringing her in to be on cam, for instance. So that was something that she said. I didn't see any other comments there. Some comments that I might have, depending on what platform or environment we're using, and if I've got the ball, or, in WebEx or Adobe Connect or Zoom, moving text around. So that would be another area that producer can assist. Another area that producer can assist is, of course, oh, thank you, Colin. I'll get that one. Another area they can assist in is putting instructions in the chat, or maybe even verbally re-emphasizing the activity that you said there. And I'm going to go hunt for Colin's activity here. Oh yeah,
so let me do a quick check-in.
Oh, I thought Colin, I thought you were saying, the reason I didn't say that was I thought you were saying that you wanted to come on and have a go at it. But he says encouraging more people to have a go. So encouraging other people. Yeah, absolutely.
We call that being a participant advocate. Producer in the role of participant advocate, because it's very obvious that producers are going to be advocating for the technology and making sure the trainer and facilitator are okay. But to Colin, your point, there's another angle, making participants comfortable by doing different things, being first to volunteer, making sure everything's working smoothly, and just advocating for a positive experience for participants. Awesome. So let me do a quick check-in. I know we have 11 minutes. Can I have like 3 more hours? Just kidding. I have another activity I would love to show you guys, but do we need, are there questions that I'm missing or another angle that we want to take, or do we activity? What should we do? How do we answer? Chat? I know. And how's the Q&A looking? Do we need to?
Yeah, there's about 6 questions in there, but I think you've covered a lot of them, except for the ones that I haven't seen from other people yet. We could just do a quick shout out, and maybe with only 10 minutes left, I hate to leave these folks hanging, but we can just maybe do a lightning round. How about that? I'll start with one of
a lightning round of questions.
Yeah. What are some best practices that you use to help with engagement in a virtual session? So I think we've gone through that. We kind of some of these elements, and the conversation that we've had so far, I think covers that. Mark, if you're looking for anything different, let me know. He also asks, what are some key prep tips that you've found are helpful for you and your producer to achieve a smooth virtual session? You could just maybe highlight a couple. How do you prep for a session? Or how do you prep a producer? I don't know.
You want to take that, Sonia?
I'm sorry, I was typing a question. So it's how do you prep a producer?
Yeah, so what are some key prep tips that you've found are helpful for you and your producer to achieve a smooth virtual session?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, producer needs to be able to have materials in advance so that they can get a look at materials, get a look at if there's a session checklist or a guide or a run plan or delivery guide, something like that. Go through that delivery guide, see what their responsibilities are well in advance of the session, so that, and then ensuring that, okay, this is a unique pod to this particular client. Do I know how to use it? And then asking for support ahead of time if they don't know how to use it, right? Of course, I wouldn't put anybody in a session where they didn't know how to use that unique pod, but just, it's there as a point of reference. And then once they get into session, during that pre-session time, really using that time to connect with the facilitator, the trainer, the leader, to say, okay, I see on slide 17, we have a breakout coming up. How many people do you want? How do you want it distributed? When do you want me to set that up ahead of time? What happens if somebody gets dropped off, and that sort of thing? Do you want to introduce the breakout? Do you want me to introduce the breakout? Those kind of things. So it's really the producer, as Cindy mentioned earlier, almost acting as a co-facilitator in some cases. Some facilitators don't like for the producer to do anything verbally other than introduce the tools, and then they want them to just do everything via the chat or maybe introduce breakouts. Otherwise, they don't want their input. And that's that's not saying anything bad about any facilitator. It's just different style. Right? I've got some facilitators who introduce tools themselves and introduce breakouts themselves. But does that answer your question, Mark?
it's a plan, you know. You
Yeah.
need to like make sure you have materials that are
This might be a good segue to talk a little bit about your upcoming event that you guys are doing to create
Yeah.
producers, right?
Yes.
It's true. I know. So like the activity that you just saw, what we want to do is get everybody into the environment. And like we mentioned earlier, we're training the producers to be facilitators so they can see what it takes and be even more informed when they're doing what Sonia just described, getting materials, working through rehearsal, communicating technical steps, and deciding who's going to speak when. Who enters when, who exits when. And so we're going to focus on training people to be virtual facilitators through activity, through modeling it, through demonstrations, through practice activities. We have teach back practices planned where I give you specific things to teach back for coaching and feedback. And also people will be making their own content and their own training activities for teach back, for feedback and coaching too. So it's a whole sort of immersive, intensive program that'll all be done live online to give you an experience to just dive in. I mean, like, yeah, like you coming in today and just being like, I haven't done it yet here in TLD's cast that we use. And so that's a big thing, really getting people in there to do it, because we could talk about it all day. And frankly, I've been talking about it for 20 years and I'm good at it. And so it's easy for me. But as soon as you do it and you come in here and try it, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So it's our goal to let you try it, right?
Yeah.
It's true. You're laughing, Brett, because
Is there
you
a link
know.
to drop in there for people to sign up to hang out with you guys during this?
Yeah. Hang on just a second. I'll put that in there. Let's see.
And while she's dropping that link in there, I would highly encourage you all to, at the very least, go check it out. Because if you're not able to do it on that particular date or whatever, you probably have some colleagues or friends that you could share that link with who would be really, really interested in participating in that. So, so definitely click that and take a look at it for sure.
I would like to add to what Cassie said, you know, kind of just put a top on it. One thing I really love about this course that Cassie has is that there's so much opportunity to not only see a master facilitator at work, but also to be able to practice each and every skill that you're learning, right? And the teachbacks are so valuable for that. And then if you need additional coaching, you know, you can partner with Cassie and, you know, get some additional coaching outside of that, right? But it's it's such a well-rounded program. You know, she's not only teaching you the tech side of the platform, but also teaching you how to get the interaction and the engagement, and really just making you a better facilitator. Even if you're not a facilitator, teaching you how to be one. So.
Yeah, and I promise you guys, I worked for WebEx for like 7 years, and my job was, here's how you click on share and then file, and then you browse for a file, and then you double click. I'm not going to do that. I'm never doing that again, actually.
No.
Everybody should just know how to use WebEx by now, right?
They should.
Or, you know, or just go watch a video. I have an idea. Open a WebEx and just click on the share menu. It's going to be okay. You'll figure it out. I promise.
Oh man, well this has been tons of fun. This would be fantastic. Yes, Cindy, I know there are tons of people out there that still don't know how to use these tools, and I said that with tongue firmly planted in cheek. So it's the reality we all live in. I still remember the days when I was teaching people how to use a mouse, and this one lady was moving her mouse, and she got to the edge of the desk she was sitting at, and so she stuck her finger underneath. She left the mouse off the edge of the desk and started rolling the ball with her finger at the edge of the desk instead of just lifting the mouse up and moving it again. She thought it was pretty much stuck to the table and it couldn't go, and it was I couldn't figure out why. I was in the front of the room. I couldn't figure out why her hand was underneath and she looked so awkward. I know, it was very funny. I tried so hard not to laugh out loud.
I would have, for sure. Oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well. Times they are a changing.
Yeah, it comes along with all new tech, right? So it's not that big a deal.
Yay!
Are you gonna have virtual zombies to hand out to people, Cassie?
Yes, maybe.
Yes.
Yes, I have. I have some new ones. They stick to the wall.
Ooh,
Ooh,
nice.
I'll pay for shipping on those for the people who win them. That
There you
sounds like
go.
fun.
They're very little. They're so cute.
Yeah, we love that.
Thank
Hey,
you,
if you guys have
everybody so much.
if you guys have in the chat, if you have, or anybody listening to this afterwards in the replay or whatnot, if you've never hung out with Cassie and seen her present, she does a fantastic job. And
She really does.
you're just awesome at it, and so grateful to have you hanging out in the community and being a part of the community and hanging out with us today and sharing some of these great tips. Absolutely.
Thank you
cool.
so much.
And
Thank
Sonia,
you.
thank you so much for sponsoring us and being a big
Yes.
part of the community as well and hanging out with us. We couldn't do it without our sponsors. And so we really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
We love the TLDC cast and the whole community. It's just been amazing for us. Yes.
Awesome.
Cassie did just a little
You
part.
guys are great. Well, excellent. Well, hey, that's going to wrap it up for us today, everybody. Be sure to drop all your links in there. If I missed anything, if there's other ways for people to get a hold of either one of you, go ahead and drop those into the chat. We can do that. And yeah, I think, and boy, I'm looking forward to hearing how the event turns out. So all of you in the chat that sign up, you have to come back on and give us a little recap of how it all went, what you learned, and you can practice your skills. Right
I have an
here.
idea, Brent.
Oh,
Yeah, for the people who go through it, let's have them present on TLD Cast.
There you
They
go.
can become your presenters, and then we'll evaluate their. I'm just kidding. We won't evaluate them.
Taking notes.
Taking
Yeah.
notes.
That Brent guy is horrible at doing this. Holy smokes, he needs Cassie's class so bad.
It's
Right.
funny.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yay.
All
Well,
right,
thank you,
guys.
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
good to see you
everybody.
both. I'm going to close your video out and wrap this
Okay.
show up, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. All right, everybody. Hey, that's another TLD cast in the can. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Cassie, thank you so much for being here. Sonia, thank you as well. What a great show. I know everybody walked away with some fantastic tips, and to actually get some engagement and getting people to have their cameras ready and to come in on the spot, spur of the moment. That's fantastic. So you guys were all very, very brave to jump in. I do know how scary it is to jump on video. So thank you all for participating and being connected with us today and being so engaged. We really appreciate that. So everybody, you know what would be a good thing to do for the rest of your day is to get out there and train somebody. And oh yeah, don't forget to learn something new. Aha!